Tonight is our first class period in our new quarter of study. I've got one booklet left. That's all that I've got left. Who did I miss? There goes Mickey. I need to get Mickey. If you're watching, you're welcome. I didn't mean to single you out, but there you go. All righty. Tonight's the first night in our new quarter class. By the way, if you didn't get a workbook on Sunday morning and you're in my Ecclesiastes class, I have a few of those up here for you. So I know some did not get one of those on Sunday morning, so please feel free just to get that when we're done, or before we have our invitation time tonight, I'll get that to you. And if you need a workbook for this class, whoever didn't get one, please tell me. We'll be happy to print some more and to bring those next time. But we don't kill trees for no purpose, so try to keep up with your workbook and it'll help you as we go through our study together. The ministry of encouragement. The ministry of encouragement. And I'm excited about what we've got planned to do this quarter. You can see on the inside there the lesson titles and an outline for each of those lessons upcoming. And you're encouraged to read those in advance of class each Wednesday evening and study on your own, and feel free to look over the questions and be prepared to answer them. Write down your own questions to ask about the material and make your comments. All of that will help contribute to a wonderful study. And so let's begin tonight. Encouragement is a biblical ministry. It is something that God wants us to do, to put it very plainly and simply. James Allen, I don't know who he is, but he made the statement, the quote that you see to start at the top in the introduction: whether you be man or woman, you will never do anything in this world without courage. And I think that's probably a very accurate and complete statement. Human beings need encouragement because we are social beings. God made us that way, and He did so, of course, in dramatic fashion, illustrating the need for other humans when Adam was found to be without his complement. And we discuss it often in a wedding setting, just like we did with Savannah and Adam last Saturday, but we should probably speak of it more often, that God made that relationship purposeful. And not only did He make the husband and wife relationship purposeful, but it serves as the foundation then on which society is built, and our time spent with other people is also thus important. Isolation is painful. Now, we all need some alone time. And I'll certainly acknowledge, having watched from afar, not having the first-hand experience of being a mother of small children, but having a wife who has been, I know that you mamas probably say, sometimes I need some alone time. And whatever you have to do to escape. If you go to another part of the house, or maybe outside in the yard, or whatever you need to do, sometimes we as husbands and dads, we need to provide them with that. But typically, isolation is painful after a certain period of time. Our worst criminals, how does the penal system punish our worst criminals? They put them in what? Solitary confinement. Solitary confinement. I've watched some of these, shows, Dateline, 48 Hours, and I've quit watching those. They're too anxiety-inducing for me. But anyways, when I did or read about some of, the worst criminals in our prison system, certain notorious prisons have areas, and one of them I think has an area called the Pit or something like that, and it's just like it sounds. It's just a pit in the ground and no outside illumination, and only just a small area where they kind of drop food down to the worst of the prisoners. Now that's kind of, I think, been ruled too cruel and inhumane, and so they've stopped doing that. But I know that Adam and Amy and they took a trip with the homeschool kids up to Brushy Mountain. That was a good, learning experience. Tell the kids, you don't want to end up in here. And I don't know how many of you have toured Brushy Mountain since they've turned it into a kind of a tourist hotspot. Yes, Brother Marvin. Okay. Wow. So Brother Marvin, he knows that firsthand, not as a prisoner, but as an employee, but he's dealt with some of those guys. Those were some bad dudes, yeah. So only a small window to get just that outside light. No contact with others. And that's very debilitating. And so you say, well, what does that have to do with this lesson? Well, it just shows, again, by way of illustration, that we need others. And encouragement is that way in which we should interact with others to have helpful influences rather than hurtful. And in order to do that, we need to develop our encouragement skills. And so you can look at it from other ways as well. You could look at it from the perspective of self-esteem or how one might foster growth and things of that nature. But someone has said that encouragement helps us to live with our human frailties and our imperfections. It really allows us to accept ourselves for what we are. And we all need to do that. And you can call that being well-adjusted or whatever else, but that acceptance is necessary for our physical well-being, our psychological well-being, and I would argue even our spiritual well-being. When we understand what Christ has done for us, we have to accept that His grace is thus a necessity of our lives. We're not perfect, but thanks be to God that His love and His mercy and grace are sufficient to help us despite those many imperfections that we have. Encouraging people make good friends. If you think about the people that you consider to be your friends, and I guess expanding it outside just our Christian family and friendships, even the people that in the job place or the locker room at school, wherever the case may be, those people that you're drawn to and are typically closest to, even in those environments, are the people that are more encouraging than discouraging. You have certain family members. I mean, I don't want to pick on anybody or ask you to point to them. Hopefully they're not here tonight, but all of us, if we were to be honest, if quizzed, do you have that family member that you would prefer maybe not to deal with? Or maybe you're the one that you want to sit on the far side of the Thanksgiving table away from because instead of encouraging, they're always discouraging or pessimistic about something or judgmental or critical. Those people we just tend to kind of stay away from. And it's even been proven, certain studies in a corporate setting show that those who are encouraging to coworkers help not only their coworkers be more productive, but they themselves are typically more productive in whatever field it may be. So it might be, just simply put, the chief element probably in all good personal relationships. Well, you say, so what? We're here to study the Bible, and we are. This is Bible study. This is Bible study class. So is it something that the Bible has something to say about? And certainly it is. Encouragement is a biblical ministry. 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 11, what does Paul tell the church at Thessalonica to do? Anybody know it right off the top of your head? It would probably be a good kind of memory verse for this particular class. Therefore, the Old King James says comfort there, which is curious because it's not the word that we use typically, and I meant to look this up, and now with my little handy-dandy computer here I can. The King James Version says, therefore comfort one another, but most of our other versions say what? Encourage one another. Let me see. Dia parakalete. So that is the word that I thought it was, the parakalete there, or the paraclete, he is also called, is the same name that Jesus gives to the Holy Spirit in John 14, 15, and 16. It's the word para prefix, meaning alongside of the prefix, and then kaleo, to call someone alongside. And that's an interesting idea, isn't it? To call someone alongside. Stand by me, not just the old song. It was a biblical concept long before. Have someone stand beside me. Comfort one another, encourage one another, exhort one another. Call one to your side and build each other up. The word there for edify that some versions use, other versions translate it, build one another up. It's the word dokamete, which is the word for house, to build up a house. So stand by me and construct me, help me be built up. And that's what Paul's saying is your responsibility to your fellow Christians, and your fellow Christians, their responsibility to you. What about Hebrews 3:13? This is a verse that's even more, in some sense, terrifying. The Hebrew writer says, why is encouragement necessary? Exhort or encourage one another Do it day by day while it's still called today. Why? Because sin is deceitful. Lest you be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. Encourage one another lest sin get the better of you, in other words. And if we're thinking back over, the span of our lives, we could maybe look at times when sin has got the better of us, and sometimes it's been simply because of our self-will and choice. But maybe there are times when we could see that perhaps the discouragement or lack of encouragement might have contributed to that. And the more terrifying thought that I was alluding to a moment ago is, how many might I have discouraged or failed to encourage as I ought, that might have then been caught up in sin or deceived by it in some way. And so the Hebrew writer is very adamant about encouraging them to be direct and to be purposeful and intentional in their encouragement. It's not just a pop psychology idea, it's a biblical concept. Going back to your handout there, notice that the Bible uses this as a frequent theme. Moses encouraged Joshua. Deuteronomy chapter 3, this is one of those occasions where encouragement, I might think, would have been very difficult. God told Moses what? You can go ahead and turn to these passages, and so you'll know where we're going. Deuteronomy 3, Moses, you're not going to get to go where? To the promised land. Go up, and I've wondered before, and of course not questioning, the instruction of God or His will or purposes, but it almost seems, again, a bit harsh, and it just seems like something that we would say rubbing salt in the wound in a sort of way. Moses, go up to the top of Pisgah. That's the mountain, of course, on the side of the Jordan there, the eastern side. Look back toward the west, across the Jordan River, and what you'll see is that promised land that you have spent these almost now 40 years leading this belly-aching, complaining, grumbling group of people to, and yet you shall not cross over this Jordan. This is what you're missing out on, in other words. Then he said, verse 28, but command Joshua and encourage him and strengthen him, for he shall go over before this people, and he shall cause them to inherit the land which you will see. When someone gets to do something that you always wanted to do, is that the prime time that you feel like really congratulating them or encouraging them in that? When somebody else gets the promotion, are you the first one in line to shake his or her hand? Probably not, Donald says honestly. Someone else makes the team and your name's not on the roster. Are we quick to encourage? Not always. And I can tell you, just because I am one, that I've discovered that preachers may be among some of the worst offenders in that category. I've thought about, and I've never done it, and maybe I'll still do it at some point, but I've always thought about writing an article or whatever, a blog post, something, sending it to the Gospel Advocate, or today you do it more online and social media, I guess, maybe a Substack for those of you that know about that. You remember in Acts chapter 1 when they decide to replace Judas. Of course, Judas has taken his own life after betraying the Lord. Two men are put forward, Joseph called Barsabbas, who is surnamed Justus, and Matthias. And you remember they cast lots, and who's chosen? Matthias. The Bible says he was numbered with the 11 apostles. It's always been impressive to me that you never hear anything from Barsabbas or Justus. You don't have any record of him, throwing a fit and saying, hey, I was just as qualified as he was. I can whatever. I can preach better than he can. I can do this better than he can. Now, I'm not saying that didn't happen, but I think here the Bible's silence probably indicates that it didn't. Maybe he went home did Barsabbas justice. Maybe he complained to his wife if he were married, or siblings, or a parent, or whomever it may be, but he didn't make a big deal out of it so as to harm the unity and the cohesion of the church. And I think that's wonderful. And again, not, whatever to use the term, I guess, hating on my preaching brothers, but I've seen some that have not done that. I've got calls to say, did you hear that such and such was hired at such and such place? You know, I was in the running for that job and they didn't pick me. Why in the world do you think they picked him instead of me? And I tried to just say, I don't know. You know, that was what those men, those elders, or that congregation, you know, I'm sure they sought the Lord's guidance, and trust they made the best choice, and maybe the Lord has something else intended for you to serve in a different place that's even better. I even had, and I won't name any names or give you any identifying clues, but I had a couple of individuals that even after we began our work with you back in July of 2018, I was at, well, I won't even tell you where I was at, but I was at another place, and one guy, I mean, this was his idea of encouragement. He come up and patted me on the shoulder, and he said, I don't know why in the world they hired you. And I laughed. And he said, no, I'm serious. I was like, well, come on, dude, you know, just keep beating me about the knees, you know. I'll give you a billy club if you want, you know, to do that. And so, you know, what does that do in the sense of being helpful? Well, nothing. Moses could have said something like that to Joshua, but we have no indication that he did. But repeatedly he says, be strong and courageous. You can do it. God's been with me. God will be with you. That's a wonderful example. 2 Chronicles 32, verses 6 to 8. The Assyrian army's on the doorstep of Jerusalem. Sennacherib has run roughshod over the entire region. And he even sends one of his servants. And if you read it, it's quite graphic, some of the things that he says. You trust in Hezekiah, it's not going to be good. And I'll leave you to read that entire context. But after they receive this letter calling for their surrender, Hezekiah takes the military captains, puts them in the open square of the city gate, and the Bible says he gave them encouragement. Specifically what it says, he gave them encouragement. And he said, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, nor be dismayed before the king of Assyria, nor before all the multitude that is with him. And here's the part that I love. For there are more with us than with him. We don't know the population of Jerusalem, but in contrast to the Assyrian war machine, they were outmanned and outgunned, substantially so. But Hezekiah said there's more with us than with him. Is that new math? Creative accounting? No. Because he goes on to say what? With him is an arm of flesh, but with us is what? With us is the Lord our God to help us and to fight our battles. And the people were strengthened by the words of Hezekiah, king of Judah. Yes, with us, the Lord's on our side. So be encouraged. And that was a motivational speech. Some of you that have played sports know that maybe you had a coach that had a special talent for doing that. And, you know, that's something that can sometimes, it seems, make a difference in athletic contests. A few years ago, I was researching some of the things that happened during the D-Day invasion. I used even some of that on the Jude lesson last quarter. I don't know how many of you have ever listened to General Eisenhower's speech to the troops before D-Day. It's a very moving speech, isn't it, Howard? And the line that I like, he said, the eyes of the world are upon you. And he talks about, you know, our cause is just and God will give us the victory and things of that nature. But it was, you know, something he was trying to do. He's encouraging these 18, 19-year-old, 20-year-old boys, you say men, but I know they are men and were men on that day, but, you know, going into the teeth of the German war machine on the beaches of France. So encouragement's needed in those great, big moments of life, if you will, but they're needed in the everyday affairs of life. Paul, when he wrote to the church at Colossae, he said, I want you to know I had a great conflict for you and those in Laodicea. I'm kind of torn apart by this idea because you've not seen my face in the flesh. And some people read that and say, well, Paul sounds like he's just egotistical. He says it's not about my ego. He said, but I want to encourage you that your heart may be encouraged and be knit together in love and attain to all the full assurance of, full assurance of understanding the knowledge of the mystery of God, both of the Father and of Christ. I want to encourage you, Paul said. I have this wonderful news about Jesus. And while we have His Word to turn to, of course, at this time, these inspired men were the ones who would deliver that message. And so Paul said, that's what I want to come and do. I want to give you this message of deliverance, of salvation, of hope that Jesus offers. And I want to encourage you. So what a wonderful example was he in that regard. You can think of others. David encouraged his men on a number of occasions. David had his faults for sure, but he was an inspiring leader, and I think that's perhaps largely due to his not only faithfulness to God, but his encouragement of others. I love the story of Deborah. Ladies, this is probably one of your favorites as well. You remember that it's a dark time in Israel's history, and they were being oppressed by their neighbors all around, and God is going to deliver the people. And the task given after Ehud dies to dispense with the king of Canaan, the Bible says that Deborah was a prophetess at that time, and Barak is kind of given the task of leading the army of Israel. And what's he do? You remember that episode? Is he happy about it? Scared? He's a little scared. And he says, I believe it's about verse 8, he said, if you will go with me, talking to Deborah, then I will go. But if you will not go with me, I will not go. You can think about historically in that context how cowardly that might have sounded. And even today, it might sound a little cowardly for a man to say that if he were faced with similar circumstances. And so she agrees to go, and God grants them a great delivery. Elijah and Elisha repeatedly encourage the people, turn back to God. Don't follow the pagans around us. Don't engage in all of these practices that displease our God. Turn back to Him. The Psalms are filled, David and others, the authors of the Psalms, with words of encouragement. I think that's maybe why the book of Psalms is universally beloved. There are some Psalms that are harsh and speak to the realities of life, especially when they're challenging. I think of Psalm 88. There's really seemingly almost no hope at all in Psalm 88 if you've read it carefully. But by and large, the majority of them say things are tough, things are bad. Life is difficult for me in this moment, but I'm going to cry out to the Lord. I'm going to trust the Lord. I'm going to put my hope in Him. And I think that's why for centuries people have, and you and me are included, have turned to the Psalms for those words of encouragement. The apostles probably were men of encouragement. We don't have a lot of record of what they did outside of men like Peter and James and John, but the others, we do get glimpses every once in a while of their encouragement. Andrew might be the example par excellence in that regard. He's always seen bringing someone or something to Jesus. And he just says, I don't know what to do. I don't know really how to help. We've got 5,000 people. I can't feed them, but here's a boy that's got a couple of, a couple of sardines and some hoe cakes, as we would say. Maybe the Lord can do something with that, and He did. And so that's encouraging even in that way to get people to Jesus. Well, that's then. What about now? Point number 2, the need for encouragement today. I'll probably say it more than once during this class. If I say it every class period, just bear with me and don't get frustrated with me. If you pick up a prayer list in the foyer that Sonia does such a good job of keeping updated and compiling all of those names and addresses and usually some particular snippet about their condition and what they need, you'll notice that one of the headings on the prayer list is encouragement. And those of you that make a regular or have made a regular habit of attending the prayer class, you don't answer, but everyone else that doesn't make a regular habit, I know some of you work and you can't come on Tuesday mornings at 10. When Brother George Folk led our class so capably for so many years, when he got to that heading and said encouragement, what did he always say? Can you guess? That's everybody. Those in need of encouragement, he said, that's everybody. And that's true. And I still sometimes share that with the class when we get to that section on Tuesday mornings. Who needs encouragement? That's everybody. Modern society struggles with meaning and happiness. That's declined really every year as long as they've started doing studies like this from a sociological perspective. And there is a correlation. Victor could tell you the mathematical term for it, but how things correlate to each other. As religion has lost influence, then people's happiness and joy and understanding of meaning in life has declined right along with it. Is that a coincidence? Don't think so. But nevertheless, we struggle with meaning. We struggle with happiness. We look for it in all the wrong places. Young people are especially susceptible to this. And the numbers are very troubling. And I didn't put any percentages on there, but you can easily find these if you would like. Increased suicide acts that are successful as well as attempts have been going up every year for the demographic from age 18 to 30 for the last 25 years especially. And those really spiked during COVID. And probably because of isolation, among other things, is the initial hypothesis. Our young people have mental health crises that's growing exponentially. Cyberbullying is one of those things. I read just, I guess it was last week, an 8-year-old. Now, this is something that just, I have difficulty wrapping my mind around how an 8-year-old would even have the thought or even understand the capability of taking, in this case it was a young girl, an 8-year-old girl, took her own life. 8 years old because of certain things that were posted online about her, from her peers at school and I guess others too. Gang involvement. You could list any number of different things. When we did our parenting seminar with Chad Landman, he listed some of these things and gave you some of those numbers last year. You can still find that on YouTube, on our YouTube page if you want to check that out. But they are seeking, young people are, just like all people are, belonging and validation. They want to belong. They want to feel like they're part of something. They don't want to be outside and excluded. And so encouragement is very much needed. And you may say, well, that's what they have to deal with. I'm just, I'm not in school anymore. I'm not in their age group. No, but you can still encourage them. You can still let them know you care. And as adults, whether parents or grandparents or just adults in general, let's be very intentional about doing that. And be very slow in our negativity toward them. I respect this individual very much. It's not a person here, so I'll just go ahead and, so don't look around and try to pinpoint who I'm talking about. I respect and love this individual very much, but they were talking with me lately, and Amy as well, about another young person who was making an attempt to perform a certain act in worship, I'll say, or you know what I mean, not perform an act of worship, but lead in a certain act of worship. And this individual was critical, saying, this is where they didn't do it right. And this young person, I think, I'm not sure exactly how old he is. I know he's in high school, so he's somewhere in that age range, 14 to 18. I think probably closer to the 14-year-old side. And Amy and I just left that conversation shaking our heads saying, why be critical of a young person that's trying, that's just, now attempting something like that. And I think we need to be very aware of that need. If we correct, and sometimes correction is needed. I'm not saying you live and let someone do something that's blatantly not right or correct, but when we do that correcting, if it's necessary, do it with great kindness, do it with great measures of encouragement, because our young people face so many problems. Yes?
The lack of encouragement goes back with their own family members.
Absolutely. Doug mentions a lack of encouragement goes back to family members, and you're absolutely right. And we're going to talk a little bit about that when we get down to adults in a moment.
You may or may not know the story, but Dr. B.J. Naylor was vice president at Free Garden when I was there. his brother, Everett, was the garbage man.
Oh.
He would go to the education students every year and say, my brother and I actually are about the same intelligence.
Wow.
We had the same gifts. He said the difference was, teacher in about the 3rd grade took note of him and gave him some special encouragement. He said, that's made all the difference.
Yep. And we can all probably think back in a time in our life when, something like that made the difference, for good or ill. Not all of those stories are good, unfortunately. There have been children and young people that have been kind of squashed, for lack of a better term, in their youth. And, that's had lifelong effects. I've heard the story, and I don't know that it's urban legend. I'm sure it happened somewhere, if not multiple places, about the little boy that, came to services one morning and, he was barefoot and just wearing his overalls and probably didn't smell the best or whatever. And some older, well-intentioned, Christian said, son, you need to, shape up. You don't need to come back here looking like that again. And, the story goes he never did. And, what do you do in instances like that? Well, you're kind, you're loving, you're encouraging, you're treating others the way you would want to be treated. But so many problems that can not always be solved by encouragement, but can be exacerbated. And that's where we go to Doug's point, adults and discouragement. Alcoholism, adultery, other types of behaviors that we say, well, that doesn't relate at all to encouragement. Well, actually it does. What the research shows is that human despair leads people to seek out behaviors to give them something, to use the proverbial expression, to scratch an itch that they have for some meaning. And that general despondency and negative attitudes usually then is displayed by acting out in some way. Mental health problems, we have to be very careful in this regard. Now, let me be sure that I state it clearly. Some mental health problems, just like physiological health problems, have a causation outside of the individual's control. For instance, some of you, I'm sure, take medication to help control high blood pressure or your diabetes or something else. That's not something you choose, but thankfully we have medical therapeutics that help you live and deal with that issue. In the same way, there are mental health concerns that sometimes, whether it's chemistry in the brain or other parts of the body, hormones and so forth, requires medical intervention, whether through medication or whether through therapy. That's sometimes necessary and appropriate. Now, when you talk about things like depression and anxiety and low self-esteem, they're not always caused by discouragement that a person received or the lack of encouragement, but they are always exacerbated or intensified by it. And that has to be something we really understand.
I get down on myself because I hear these stats and these numbers, and it just sounds so depressing.
Right.
But then I remind myself that none of this is new, and all the way back in Proverbs 12:25,
Yep.
anxiety weighs down the heart, but a kind word cheers it up.
A kind word cheers him up, and that's absolutely right. And we'll probably never be able to quantify these things. What Doug said about in your family, children that grow up in families where they are not praised, and I don't mean just, the parent that never lets their child lose at anything. I'm not talking about that, but if a child grows up in an environment where they are not encouraged and praised and accepted for who they are, that has lifelong ramifications. And most of the individuals, not all again, but the percentages are most that deal with things like depression and anxiety in adulthood will come from a home setting in their youth that was not ideal, that did not have the nurture and the encouragement that was needed. And like I said, these things are always intensified by discouragement. And that's why you've heard me times without number say, if you're encountering an individual, certainly another Christian that might be struggling with some of these things, the old patting them on the back and say, well, you just need to study your Bible more, or you just need to pray more. That is not helpful. That is very hurtful. that can be hurtful enough that it causes that individual to take extreme measures. So that's not going to do any good for anyone, and not even for you.
Some people are harder to encourage.
Sure.
They don't invite encouragement, and you still need to encourage those people. But then there's people that are different.
Yep.
And maybe it's easier to avoid it than it is to be around it. And I think we fail in that department a lot for people that we might not think deserve our encouragement.
Sure. And that's what I hope through this class we can see kind of the bigger picture that Heather is mentioning of everyone needs it. And the people that are a little different, yeah, it is hard to love some people. I mean, let's just face it, that's the truth of the matter. Some people are hard to encourage. A lot of times those people hard to encourage, they've never received it, and when they get it, they don't know what to do with it. And so they want to try to dismiss it. Well, they're just being nice to me to try to, get something out of me or manipulate me. Because that's how they've been treated for so long. And certainly in the church, we should never be those kinds of people. Characteristics, we'll revisit these. This is just really by way of introduction tonight. People are drawn to encouragers. If you're a good encourager, you'll also be a good listener. You'll be patient and non-judgmental. You'll invest time, make others feel special. You'll celebrate other people's success. We'll explore all of those ideas and more as we go throughout the class, but that's crucial to understand. As we think about number 4, it's a choice and a process to become an encourager. It is a spectrum of sorts, and what I mean by that idea of a spectrum is nobody's completely one or the other. I know a lot of positive people. I know a lot of negative people. I know most people, we land somewhere kind of in the middle. But if we want to tend to one side or the other, let's tend to the side of positive encouragement, and not be the negative Nellies or the, whatever you want to say, Debbie Downers that so many other people in the world are. Further, point number B there under 4, the possibility of growth and change. People can grow. People can change. Sometimes we don't believe that. We don't believe that about ourselves. We don't believe that about others. That's the way they'll always be. So why should I invest any of my time or effort or encouragement in them? It's not a biblical idea. The Bible tells us we can change. It's not something that we can do simply by our own initiative. We have to make a decision, but God cooperates with us in that process. The boy in the pig pen came to himself and he said, I'll go back home. And he did, and the Father welcomed him. Point number C, this is something that I forget where I first heard it or who first told me, but it really kind of just, it hits you in the gut. The impact of encounters. Every person you meet every day, every encounter you have with every person, they will leave that interaction with you either more encouraged or less encouraged. And you can say that in a number of ways. I've also heard it said this way, and I think it just is synonymous. The people that you interact with, from that time of interaction with them, either you will draw them closer to the Lord or you will push them farther away. Now that may not be observable always. It may be very small, but some incremental change for good or bad is going to be the result of every interaction that you have. And some people, we rejoice in our successes. We can probably think of some times when we realized our actions might have had a detrimental effect on people. I had a lady tell me one time, this is the extreme example, I hope none of you have had this, but we had a certain relationship. It was in the church, and I was trying to help her work through some things that were very difficult in her life, and she eventually became very resistant to that. And I tried to be as kind as I could in telling her, this is what you need to do. This is what the Bible says you need to do. So, I had that as my basis. This is what you need to do. And she got so mad at me, she stood up and she said, I'm coming back, and when I do, I'm going to kill you. And that really got my attention. I was like, that's pretty serious. She never did come back. I hope she's not watching. Well, I do hope she's watching tonight. But, I don't know, she's in another place. But everyone you interact with, they're going to be encouraged or discouraged from your interaction with them. And the good thing is you can become an encourager. You may say, well, that's not who I am. That's not my personality. Well, it should be. Because when you think about Jesus, is there an individual that left the presence of Jesus not knowing that He loved them? Have you ever given any thought to that? Every person that Jesus interacted with, now not everybody liked him, that's clear. The Pharisees hated him. They killed him along with the other Jewish religious leaders. He told them the truth, but he told them lovingly. Sometimes he was very stern, but he was encouraging them to look at themselves in light of God's truth and make the amends necessary to be pleasing to God. That's what was most necessary. He told the rich young ruler, you need to sell what you have. What you own owns you. He went away sorrowful, but he had heard the truth. He had left encouraged, knowing what he needed to do, even though he was unwilling to do it. So you need to understand, and this is what the class will really be about, the dynamics, the skills, and the action and the practice. So encouragement will help you grow, and it will help you help others grow. We'll hopefully guide each other in becoming better encouragers, and then we will see the benefits that will come both to us, ourselves, and to others as we try to be encouragers, leading a more effective life. The discussion questions, I wanted to get to them. I knew I probably wouldn't, but you just kind of read those over by way of summarizing this lesson, if you will, and maybe preparing for next week. Think about some of those things, and think about how you can answer them. How can I be a more encouraging person, and how will that help me help others? And the Lord willing, we'll study lesson number 2 about how we do that, starting next week on the power that courage and encouragement can bring. Any questions or comments tonight? You've been excellent in your questions. Yes, Brother Martin. Sure.
I hope nobody takes this as wrong way. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back or anything like that. But I left Russia over to go to 1945. Those prisoners begged me to come back and see them. Wow. Because the way that we, and I stood side by side with the convenience store there, and they begged me to come back and talk with them, be with them as visitors.
You treated them with encouragement, with kindness and love. Brother Martin, during his time, he was saying at the Brushy prison, they even asked him to come back to visit. But that's a testament to you, and I know that you're a good encourager, and a lot of the rest of us do too, so that doesn't surprise us at all about your good character in that regard. Let's all strive to be encouragers this week, and let's study and pray and think about that, and we'll study it more together, the Lord willing, next Wednesday night. Thank you for your good attention this evening.
What a friend we have in Jesus. 213, number 216, number 216.
Good evening. We've been with you about 18 months now, and we certainly appreciate all of you and the family you brought us into. Excuse me. One of the first things I remember was one of Alan's sermons, and he gave me some really strong advice from the pulpit. Now, I'm about 90% sure that he was talking directly to me, but I was sitting behind Clyde Randolph and in front of Bruce Beach and J.C. Davis. So, I'm about 90% sure he was talking to me. So he looks down and very directly he says, "It is best to keep your mouth closed and be thought a fool rather than to open your mouth and remove all doubt." So for the last 18 months, I've tried to, follow that advice. If the preacher's giving it to you from the pulpit, you better listen. But as we all know, a fool can't keep his mouth shut long. So here we are tonight. Look at 2 Timothy 2, 19 through 21. Excuse me. These the scriptures are from the American Standard Version. "Howbeit, the firm foundation of God standeth, having this seal, the Lord knoweth them that are his. And let every one that nameth the name of the Lord depart from unrighteousness. Now in a great house there are not only vessels of gold and silver,
but also of wood and of earth, and some unto honor, and some unto dishonor. If a man therefore purge himself from these, he shall be a vessel unto honor, sanctified, meet for the master's use, prepared unto every good work. I have a little story here originated, I think, from India. And Don, you know where that is? India? Okay. It's about a water bearer in a clay pot. A water bearer in India had 2 large pots, each hung on each end of a pole which he carried across his neck. One of the pots had a crack in it, and while the other pot was perfect and always delivered a full portion of water at the end of the long walk from the stream to the master's house, the cracked pot arrived only half full. For a full 2 years, this went on daily, with the bearer delivering only 1 1/2 pots of water to his master's house. The perfect pot was proud of its accomplishments, perfect to the end for which it was made. But the poor cracked pot was ashamed of its own imperfection and miserable that it was able to accomplish only half of what it had been made to do. After 2 years of what it perceived to be a bitter failure, it spoke to the water one day by the stream. I'm ashamed of myself and I want to apologize to you. Why? Asked the bearer. What are you ashamed of? I have been able for these past 2 years to deliver only half my load because this crack in my side causes water to leak out all the way back to your master's house. Because of my flaws, you have to do all of this work and you don't get full value from your efforts, the pot said. The water bearer felt sorry for the old crackpot, and in his compassion, he said, as we return to the master's house, I want you to notice the beautiful flowers along the path. Indeed, as they went up the hill, the old crackpot took notice of the sun warming the beautiful wild flowers on the side of the path, and this cheered it some. But at the end of the trail, it still felt bad because it had leaked out half of its load, and so again, it apologized to the bearer for its failure. The bearer said to the pot, did you notice that there were flowers only on your side of the path, but not on the other pot's side? That's because I have always known about your flaw, and I took advantage of it. I planted flower seeds on your side of the path, and every day while we walked back from the stream, you've watered them. For 2 years, I've been able to pick these beautiful flowers to decorate my master's table. Without you being just the way you are, he would not have had this beauty to grace his house. From what I have seen in my time here, I think I could safely say that the elders here are crackpots. Alan Judd is a crackpot. David Lipe is a crackpot. I'm really glad to see that the congregation supports and sponsors a work in India. But it's really been a surprise to me that the 2 people responsible for that work have had their faces put on wanted posters, guilty of spreading the gospel, and now those posters are all over India. The only thing I can compare it to, so you can understand, is that America has Bonnie and Clyde. India has Kathy and Don, 2 notorious crackpots. Look at 1 Corinthians 3, 5 through 9. Excuse me. What then is Apollos and what is Paul? Ministers through whom ye believed, and each as the Lord gave to them. I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the increase. So then, neither is he that planteth anything, neither he that watereth, but God that giveth the increase. Now he that planteth and he that watereth are one, but each shall receive his own reward according to his own labor. Excuse me. The word minister carries the meaning of servants. Christians are to be servants, working together as one, using their individual talents and time to further the work of the church, to serve the Lord. We have a lot going on here. We have a meeting coming up. We have our different programs that we support and do. There is something for each one of us to do. No matter what our flaws are, what our difficulties are, there is something we can do. We are to sow. We're to plant. We're to water. We are to use our talents and abilities any way we can to accomplish the work of the church. God will give the increase. We're not judged on our success. We're judged on our willingness and our ability to work and do and carry out what we've been asked to do, which is spread the gospel. John 4:13 and 14. Jesus answered and said unto her, every one that drinketh of this water shall thirst again. But whoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall become in him a well of water springing up unto eternal life. 2 Timothy 2:21 again. If a man therefore purge himself from these being unrighteousness, the world, worldly lust, he shall be a vessel unto honor, sanctified, meet, meaning suitable, available, able for the master's use, prepared unto every good work. The term vessels unto honor. One of the hardest things for us to understand is that we are spiritual beings created in the image of God. This physical world and what we have here was created for each of us, for us to live in and work and strive and survive. We've been given these marvelous bodies, these physical machines, earthly vessels to house our spiritual being, to allow us to function in this physical world. And we have to understand that these bodies have an expiration date. Therefore, time is crucial to us. We have a limited time to fulfill what we are supposed to do here on this earth. Now, if you're looking for the meaning of life or why we are here, Alan Judd will give that to you on Sunday mornings. His class is going to answer those questions. So I'm not going to get into that. 2 Corinthians 4:7. But we have this treasure in earthen vessels, that the exceeding greatness of the power may be of God and not from ourselves. As Christians, we are that earthen vessel. The treasure we carry is that water of life, the gospel of salvation. The command is to go into the world teaching the gospel to all creation. Kaufman wrote, God entrusted the gospel to people who had none of the trappings of earthly power and honor, in order that the great success of the gospel would not be accredited to its messengers as men, but unto the eternal God who inspired them. Christianity does not conquer the world with armies. Christianity does not conquer the world with power and force. Christianity wins and conquers the world one soul at a time. We are the cracked pots in this world. We carry the water of life that Jesus gave us when we were baptized into him. We cannot and do not have Christianity unless we give it away. We must share it with others. That's the only way we can have Christianity. Excuse me. Each of us has our own unique flaws. We're all cracked pots. God uses cracked pots. Now, I'm going to change just a little bit, and I want to talk to you about the invitation. A lot of times we take things for granted. A lot of times we're here and we're very consistent in our attendance, and we go through the worship service, and sometimes we take things for granted. The custom is to set aside a moment at the end of a lesson or service to allow people to reflect on their condition in life and consider where they stand with God. My mother, while I was a young, impressionable child, living under the threat of the switch, belt, or razor strap, whatever was within reach when it was needed, explained to me that the invitation was a time for quiet and reverence. I was not to create a distraction that might cause someone to lose focus and fail to make the decision they were thinking about. This was being treated as a serious moment. We need to live that we need to realize that we live our lives one moment at a time. We only have control over the moment that we're in, that's in our hands right now. Because when that moment is gone, it's in the past. It's over. It's done. There's nothing we can do about it. We can't call it back. We can't redo it. It's gone. And all we have to work with is that one moment that we have. We think about the future, but the future never gets here. The future is not promised. We have no promise of tomorrow. No promise of the next moment. But when that moment comes at us from the future, it comes fast and it comes hard. And the minute it gets to us, it changes. No longer the future. It's the present. It is where we are, where we make decisions. I outrun my notes. When you stand in this invitation moment, it's a moment of decision. In that one moment, you're facing a divide in the road that you're traveling, a fork in the road. And Christian or non-Christian, you must make a decision in that moment. If you're the Christian, one that's been baptized into Christ, you should meet the invitation moment with quiet and reverence. You should ask yourself in that moment, does my life reflect Christ? You should ask, am I fulfilling the new command that Christ gave us? We all know the golden rule, do unto others that you would wish them to do unto you. But Christ gave a new command. John 13:34. A new commandment I give you, that ye love one another, even as I, Christ, have loved you, that ye also love one another. Christ loved us enough to give his life. Are we loving that way? Do we feel the need to give Christianity to people around us? Do we judge people or deem them unworthy? for what we have? We need to ask those questions. We need to examine ourselves. Christians need to look at their lives and say, you know, have I fallen away? Do I need help? Do I need prayers? If you do, there are crackpots all around you ready to help. Now, for those outside of Christ, you only have two choices in this moment. Number one, you say yes to Christ. Confess Him as the Son of God and your Savior and be baptized into Him. Receiving the promise of salvation and brotherhood in the kingdom of the church. Or you say no. You decide not now, maybe later. I want to live a little bit first. I don't want to commit. You have rejected God and Christ. You've rejected salvation. In that moment, you are still in the world. You're lost outside of Christ. The question then you need to ask, will I have this opportunity again? You've come to this point of decision. There is no promise of the next moment or the next day. This is all you have, is that one moment. Will it ever come again? Will we ever be able to be in that position to choose again? Time to make a decision. There are crackpots down front. There are crackpots on all sides of you, ready to assist in any way they can. So, as we stand and sing, make a decision.
For a closing song, we'll sing number 247. Number 247.